Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you back if you are an existing user and listener. Glad to have you for the first time if you've just discovered us. So welcome. We're excited to have today's guest today. It's an amazing story. I got to watch her documentary, and we'll get to that in just a minute, but a little bit of house cleaning. I do want to remind people that we are distributed on over 23 different podcast applications. So wherever you get your podcast, we should be there. And if you can't find it there, it's always easy to find it on the website, rexandrewshow.com. I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor, our friends at Wealth Management Group. They are amazing to work with. I've always loved working with the team over there because they don't really sell products. They don't push vehicles. They literally sit down with you, look at your financial goals, and then pick out the right tools to get there. So they're not product sellers. They're not pushy folks. They're really good at just helping you with your goals. Their website is wealthmanagement.estate. That's wealthmanagement.estate. All right. So today I've been excited about this for more than a week to invite Denise DeSimone on today. She has an amazing story. It's a story that's universal. She does quite a few things. And so I'm excited to have her tell part of her story today and what she's up to and how she's contributing into the world. You know, in this day and age, we see so many people who are inner focused, who are just focused on their lives and what they're doing. Denise is, through her challenges in life, if you could say, has learned to take that challenge and release it outward. And so I'm really excited to be here today with Denise. So Denise, welcome. How are you today?
Oh, I'm very well, and it's great to be with you as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity to spend this time with you and share it with your listeners and your viewers. I've been very excited as well since you invited me.
Well, good to have you. So let's set the stage here for our listeners. You ended up getting diagnosed from cancer, but before, and it's an amazing story, and we'll get into that in detail. What were you up to in your life before this huge stop sign hit you upside the head?
That's a great way to put it, a stop sign, yeah. Or at least a slow down sign.
A slow down sign, for sure, for sure.
And I think that was the message the universe wanted to convey to me. But before I was diagnosed in 2005, I was super busy. You know, I was working full time in the high tech industry. I was on the board at my church. I had a part-time private healing practice working on people doing sound therapy and Reiki and reflexology. I was training to raise money for children with cancer. I was training to do a bicycle ride of 90 miles in one day. So I was riding about 75, 100 miles a week.
Wow.
Getting ready for that bike ride. And I also have a big crazy Italian family and a lot of friends I've had for decades, and I'm a pretty social person. And I was just living my life and having fun and being busy and contributing where I could. And all of a sudden, you know, Spirit said, nope, you need to sit down. And so I did.
So you were this high energy, high performance person, into all kinds of things, physically active, a pretty good health, right? You were in good shape at that point in time?
Oh yeah, I was. I mean, I was swimming 5 miles a week. I was riding my bike, like I said. I was golfing at least a couple times a week, working. I was just super active, and I've always been a bit of a gym rat. Went to school and learned how to be a personal trainer, specifically targeted toward older women so they wouldn't get hurt. And I was just really healthy. You know, I didn't really have any issues at all.
So how did you discover the cancer? What happened? How did you discover this whole thing?
I had a lump on my neck, and it started to increase in size. So I called my doctor, and he kept telling me it was nothing. Then I was very tired. He also said, come in and see one of the nurse practitioners, which I did. And they said, you're fine, did some blood work, you're fine. I was exhausted though. And they said, you're pushing it too hard, training and doing all that and riding your bike that much. Little did I know that something had fallen through the cracks from the laboratory to my doctor's office. And that was a blood test that came back that I didn't find out about for months and months, even after I had the cancer diagnosis, that I had been diagnosed with mono.
Oh.
Nobody ever told me.
So I'm sorry to cut you off. How did they, what did they explain the lump was? I mean, if there's nothing to worry about, what did they tell you the lump was?
Good question. They told me that it was a gland. I had probably had a flu or a cold or something of such nature. And they told me that it was just a gland that would go away on its own and that it would retreat. And I just needed to slow down a bit. And so, this is 3-4 months later, and I'm still tired and committed to do the ride. And I went and did the ride that day, and at the lunch stop. Now, this is a 90-mile in one day ride.
Right.
It was a very hot August day. The Pan Mass Challenge is the largest athletic fundraiser in the world. In the decades they've been doing this, they've raised $700 million. I just
Wow.
actually interviewed the founders, husband and wife team, on my podcast last week.
Nice.
And the statistics are just astounding. So I really committed. I raised a lot of money, and I did the ride. At the lunch stop, I almost couldn't finish. They wrapped me in Mylar. I was drinking Mylanta like it was, water. Finished the ride. Don't really have much of a memory between the lunch and the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I know, I'm at the doctor 2 days later, and I pushed my way into his office. I said, I got to see you, because my sister saw me, and my brother-in-law saw the lump on my neck. And he said, what is that? And I was feeling really bad after the ride. I ended up at my sister's house down in Cape Cod. And I said, it's just a lump. They keep telling me I'm fine. And my sister said, you get your butt in that seat in the doctor's. And if he doesn't see you today, when you get home, I'm coming up there with you. So I went to the doctor, and the minute he looked at me, he was so apologetic, profusely apologetic, and said, I wish I had seen you when you asked me to. I think you have cancer.
Oh my
He went
goodness.
ashen white. He went as white as a tissue.
Wow.
And I was freaked. I'm all by myself.
Right.
So I went to another doctor. I went to a surgeon because my PCP said I needed a biopsy.
Yep.
Went for the biopsy. The doctor told me before I had the biopsy that there was nothing to worry about. I see this all the time. Don't worry about it. It's just a gland, again, that needs to retreat on its own. Okay, you want to believe them.
Right.
And I doubt you have any kind of cancer. Day comes, I go to the doctor for the biopsy, go to the hospital, wakes me up in the operating room and tells me I have a cancer and it's very aggressive. And I said, do I have lymphoma? And he said, no, I wish you had lymphoma. You have something far worse, and you need to get to the doctor yesterday. You need to see somebody like right now, get in treatment. I was 90 days from death.
Oh my goodness.
Thank God I did the Pan Mass Challenge to push myself. I would be dead today. It literally saved my life by raising thousands of dollars to help find a cure for kids' cancer.
So then did you go back to the original doctor, or where did you go after that?
Oh yeah, I went to the original doctor. He wanted me to go to a oncologist, head and neck cancer doctor up in the neighborhood where I was, up in northern Massachusetts is where I'm from. And I went into Boston. I went into Mass Eye and met with the head of head and neck oncology and started treatment. Within a week, they took me in. I had a feeding tube inserted. That's how I was fed for 9 months. I had to learn how to eating baby food. Couldn't drink water, couldn't really talk much. I was sick. I did 1 round of chemo and got such a bad reaction. It was horrific. And I decided I wasn't going to do any chemo, and I did a lot of radiation. So, which reminds me, I don't have saliva, so I may have to interrupt for a
Oh,
second.
no, you're good. You're good. So I have a question for you.
Sure.
When any of us get diagnosed with any type of health issue, there's usually an initial reaction. Okay. Sometimes it's denial, sometimes it's fear. Here you were all running at this high pace, this high performance lifestyle, and you get hit over the head with this. What was your initial reaction to this? Because maybe yours is different than mine. I had some health issues, and I remember what mine were.
Well, that's a great question. And I think there's the initial reaction, and then there's the cascading of the following reactions.
Sure.
And the initial reaction was not that of shock, because I do believe that when you know yourself as well as I did, and even if you don't, I knew something wasn't right. But I wanted to believe the doctor that nothing was wrong because I was busy. I didn't have time for anything serious.
Right.
I didn't want anything serious. I didn't have time for anything serious. A lot of people depended on me, and cancer didn't care. But my initial reaction was, when you first get diagnosed, the first thing is like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? How long do I have? And what did I do wrong?
Right.
And it was so interesting and such a gift that a friend of mine from church called me the day after my diagnosis. And of course, I had been up most of the night. And she said, do you want to pray? And I said, yes, absolutely. I would love to. And before we prayed, she said something that helped the trajectory of my journey. She said, I want to say something to you. I said, what? She said, you didn't do anything wrong. And I do a lot of cancer wellness coaching, and it's the first place I go with people to find out where they're at with how they are doing the beating up and the punishing of self, and what did I do wrong, and why did I eat so much red licorice, and how come I ate so much sugar, and why didn't I do this right? None of that matters, Rex.
Yeah.
So my initial reaction was to pay attention and remember what she said and let it carry me. So I couldn't get to a good place if I kept thinking I did something wrong. I needed to stay open and mindful and prayerful and let myself be guided by first the doctors, and then in conjunction with the doctors, my own spirit telling me what was right for me.
Right.
Oftentimes people want everything outside of them to be fixed by a doctor. Oh, I have cancer, get a knife, cut it out. Oh, I have this, will you take care of it? No. You saw in my documentary where I say I realized the curing is the work of the doctors. Healing people and healing ourselves from the inside out is truly the work of our soul. And not too long after, I got deep into the soul level work, which isn't, you got to go into the shadow side.
Okay. Well, I can remember, and it was 18 years ago that I came up with a diagnosis, and we won't talk about my diagnosis today, but
We can.
that's another show for another time. We can go there.
How about I'll interview you on my podcast?
That's right. We can do that.
Yeah.
And I can remember feeling like a broken vessel at the time. And the same type of thing. What did I do wrong? Okay. And I know you're a person of faith, and as I am, and I was then asking, well, what did I do wrong in the eyes of the Lord? Now, I know the Lord is not a punitive, spirit, right? But I was just like, well, what did I do to deserve this? And so there was the initial shock and am I broken? Why did I deserve this? And then there's this, okay, I've got to sort this out. Is this a penalty? Is it a gift? Is it there? So how long did it take you to go through sort of that initial shock to the transition where you were starting to look of, hey, I'm going to look inward to be myself to beat this?
That's a fabulous question as well. And backing up a little bit, I just turned 50 years old.
All right.
And
I was
now,
about to ask that.
yeah.
You're not supposed to ask a young lady, how old she was, but I did
Wait,
want to ask that. How old were you when this happened?
you're such a gentleman. Thank you. I had in fact, it was a week before my 50th birthday.
Uh-huh.
And now I've just celebrated my 65th birthday. So it's been 15 years that
Wow.
God has kept
Congratulations.
me here. Thank
Yeah.
you. And I feel better than ever and younger than ever. So I'm grateful. How long did it take me? I had always been in what I call the spiritual gymnasium. I had been a seeker since my early 20s,
Okay.
following the Lord, the Wayne Dyers of the world. I was raised Christian, I was raised Catholic. I don't follow all the tenets of Catholicism at this point in my life. I've followed, studied other religions. After my diagnosis and my treatment, and I came on the other side of it, I decided to go to seminary to become an interfaith minister. So
Oh,
I'm
fabulous.
yeah, so I believe that all paths, and the Pope just came out and said that all paths lead to the same God,
Right.
however you get there. So for me, how I got there was to realize, first of all, I needed to call on my spiritual muscle that I had been developing in the spiritual gymnasium. Just like you go to the gym and lift weights so you're
Sure.
strong. I just got a delivery of a box, must have weighed 40 pounds today, and I picked it up and carried it in the house because I'm in shape. I needed to be in shape spiritually. And I do believe that God, whatever you want to call it, I call it God, higher power,
Sure.
however, whoever listening, whatever you call it, it's up to you. And I do believe that spirit kind of knew that I could take this on and I could handle it and I could help be a voice to help a lot of people should I decide to go through and come the other side the way I did. But I went into it with the openness, minded, hearted, spirit, physical, mental, emotional, to surrender, not like, oh, I wave a white flag and I give up, but surrender to me means to open up. What was this about? What did spirit have for me? So it didn't take me too long to realize I remember standing up at my church because I was a very vocal and visible pillar of my community of over 200 something people.
Okay.
And I remember standing and people were freaked out, like, oh my gosh, if Denise could get this, what could happen to me?
Right.
So I stood up on the altar and I said one Sunday, I don't have cancer. I have an opportunity. I have an opportunity to walk closer with God, and I have an opportunity to walk my talk. And you can all come along with me. And some people shut down when they get something like this. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't. I opened up and I was very aware of the love. Sometimes it was overwhelming. So much love was like, what do I do with this?
Right.
And I was very quickly aware that I couldn't just take a spiritual bypass. I don't think that helps anybody. Oh, gee, I got cancer. Isn't this great? I'll be a spokesperson for God. No, I let it all. You have to be authentically aware and authentically honest with yourself. I was angry. I was sad. I was hurt. I was mad. I was sick. I was fearful. But yet I never gave a lot of that too much airtime in my head. I did what I had to do. I bought a wiffle ball bat when I got angry and I pounded on my bed and I beat up my pillow and I banged on my recliner only to get all of this out of me. Because if you can't get it out of you, you can't make room for the light to come in. So I believe that I moved quickly into the knowledge that I had to feel it all, and I had to let my spirituality make room for my personality.
Right.
And a lot of people don't do that. And then all of a sudden they're they're so in their spiritual life that they forget that we're human beings. We have feelings of anger. We have feelings of hurt. We have feelings of fear. But fear and love are the only two real emotions. And I knew, Denise, they can't coexist. So every opportunity you have, opt for the love, recognize the fear, and talk to God.
So Did you have an aha moment where you looked back and said, wow, I've been prepared for this since I started being a seeker?
Yeah.
I mean, because sometimes when we have struggles in this world, and I don't want to get on a soapbox, but sometimes when we have struggles in this world, we don't realize that we've been prepared for those struggles based on things we've been through,
Mhm.
or this is a new opportunity to learn something different. So was there an aha moment like that?
Well, I don't know if there was an aha moment, but there was an aha moment in my life when I was about, how old was I? My early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told probably 5 people this in my life. And
Well, you just told a lot more now.
it's it's something that has carried me through any challenge. That spirit really spoke to me, and I knew there is a God, there is a higher power. If I ever doubted it, don't ever doubt it. And I never did after that. I was very sick with the gallstones,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted to operate on me. And I was seeing a chiropractor at the time who said, I don't think it's the best thing. I have this book called Are You Stoned? And this doctor wrote it, and it's a way to cleanse your body naturally, and you can pass these gallstones.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, that's wacky. Yet I said, okay, let me think about this. So I was between a rock and a hard place of the decision, and I was leaning way towards surgery out of fear.
Okay.
And I remember being at a bird sanctuary with 2 friends of mine, and they were walking, went off. And I lay down on the ground. I sat down on the ground first, and I said a prayer, and I said, Spirit, you need to send me a lightning bolt of an affirmation. If I'm supposed to go the natural way, please make it very clear as a bell, as clear as a lightning bolt, no questions asked. And I just kind of leaned on my side, stomach, on my elbow. And it was a gorgeous day. And as God is my witness, I watched a blade of grass. It makes me emotional and chills me to the bone. I watched a blade of grass, a single blade, grow about an inch and a half and vibrate at a speed that was unnatural to me in less than 30 seconds. And the spirit said, there's your answer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's help people refocus. When you got diagnosed, this wasn't a minor diagnosis, right? You were at what stage?
Stage 4,
Stage 4. And
throat and
for
neck cancer.
throat and neck cancer, stage 4. How long did they tell you you had to live?
Well, they said you got about 90 days. You have to get, I mean, within a few days, I had a feeding tube in me. I was at the doctor's. They were making a mask, which was horrific for radiation, schedule you for chemo. I mean, I had to work really quickly. And I had to also decide if chemo was for me. And I knew it wasn't, but I said, okay, you can do 1 round of chemo. I'll see how that goes. It was not pretty.
Mm,
And in my book, I write about the process I went through to get inside my own heart and soul. And again, connecting another blade of grass, which it wasn't, but it was more of a connecting with the angelic realm and God and my saints and angels that led me to make the decision that chemo wasn't for me. But I did a lot of radiation. I did 40 days of radiation. The last 2 weeks were twice a day. So it was bad. I was burnt. It was awful. I don't even want to.
Did that at giving you notice that you had 90 days, did they give you any hope for survivability of this, or was it just you got 90 days and we'll see what happens?
They said, you don't have a long time because, I'm a Reiki master, a sound therapist. I had been doing all this alternative therapy for a long time. And I said, well, I'd like to see if I could do some more things naturally. And they said, you'll be dead. Unless you have a miracle up your sleeve, you won't live.
Wow.
And not only will you not live, but to die from stage 4 and unharnessed head and neck cancer, the people who will have to care for you their lives will be forever altered in not a good way. It's horrific to watch this. And I said, okay, I get it. So I went and I did what I had to do, and I got into treatment very quickly.
Okay.
And I decided no chemo very quickly. But then I also did a lot, once radiation was over, I did a plethora of natural remedies, which are listed on the alternatives tab on my DeniseDeSimone.com website.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long did you kind of start your initial treatment, and then what were the doctor's thoughts as you continue to go through this process? Because obviously they probably were counting the days for you, right?
Well, some of them might have been. I don't know. I told them I don't want to know statistics. I'm me. I'm not a statistic. Don't put me in a box of anybody else. I don't care what people have done before me. I have my own path, and if you join me on it, that's wonderful. Hold the belief, hold the space, hold the prayer that what is to be is to be. And if I'm to die, I'll die. If I am to live, well, then you know what, God, you better co-create something magnificent with me, because I want to use my life in a way that is absolutely 100% an example for other people to live by and help them, be of service. And so the doctors might have been counting the days. And, I believe I had to just look at this as now I always heard, hold your dreams with an open palm, because it might be better than you expect. Don't hold on so tight.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the dream of living. And I also had the acceptance if I died. Well, I always say I didn't want to slide into home plate in front of God all freaked out. I wanted to be able to spend the last days of my life doing everything I could to be alive, but also finding some peace. And during that time, I have to say that even though I was sick, it was one of the most beautiful times in my life, because I so slowed down, and I had, we're human beings, but we're always doing. I got an
Right.
opportunity to just be. And I really learned a lot, and I was in the relationship with God in a way that I would never have had that opportunity had I not gone through this.
So you get through this, the doctors, how were they doubting doctors, or were they surprised? What was their reaction to how you attack this?
Some of them were all on board. Some of them were freaked out, as my family was. Oh my God, what do you mean no chemo? Well, I knew I wouldn't make it if I took chemo in my body more. But I
Right.
also had a naturopath on my team, Dr. Savastio. And I connected the allopathic and the naturopathic to communicate. And I built a relationship, a triangulation of me, my traditional doctors, and my naturopath, and we all connected and we all communicated. And so I taught my doctors some things that maybe they wouldn't have been aware of about natural healing and certain things that I had been doing. So I think that's a very important place for people who are going through this, that there's a lot of alternative therapies, and I like to call them complementary. Alternative means different than or in place of.
Right.
I'm not
Right.
saying in place of. I'm saying because you need to build up your immune system and your strength after. And a lot of, unfortunately, traditional doctors don't have that in their toolkit.
Right. Yeah, the American medical system has been trained in a specific way. So you started on your path to healing. So what have you done with it since? I mean, I'm looking at your website and your documentary. Looks like you're doing some pretty amazing things moving forward, taking this what most people would look as a tragedy. What have you been doing since with this?
Well, it took a couple of years, to come around, and I still have lifelong side effects that we don't have to talk about.
Right.
But one of the first things that I did was I'm a singer and a guitar player, and they told me I'd probably never sing again, and I couldn't talk, I couldn't sing for a year. Then I started to get my voice back, and part of the Pan Mass Challenge, the bike ride, they are sponsored by the Red Sox, Boston Red Sox.
Oh, nice.
And every year there is a big celebration of all the riders, 5,000, 6,000 people come to Fenway Park before a Red Sox game. And they're part of the stands. Red Sox fans number 38,000 at Fenway Park. And it was 2007, and I signed up to do the ride again against the will of my doctors, but I was strong enough, and my voice had come back some. And they asked me if I would sing the national anthem in front of 38,000 people at Fenway Park.
Wow.
On evening. And I said, whoa, eek. Uh-oh, now I set myself up for something big. I guess my sister said, you better do it. You asked for a big platform if you live, so you got to go inspire people. So I said,
Right.
all right. And I did. And from there, I ended up writing a book called From Stage 4 to Center Stage at the request of some friends.
Nice.
Ministerial school, became a minister, and then I traveled around the country speaking and teaching, sharing my book, sharing my knowledge. I've produced four CDs that help people with sound therapy, and I took all the peace prayers from the different religions and put them to music, and I pray the prayers, which is it's a very peaceful meditative CD, my music CD. And then, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, a friend said, you really need to get your documentary done. I said, I don't have any money. I can't do that. So she said, I bet you we can figure it out. So I put it out there, and with $50, $250, $500 donations, I raised over $20,000 and premiered my documentary back in April. Well, virtual, of course, because of COVID.
Sure.
And so now my dream is, and it's been viewed by many, many, but it's a really good body of work, and it's important. And then in COVID time, I decided I was going to start a podcast called So Much More Than Cancer.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you've got a website for that. What's your website address for your podcast?
SoMuchMoreThanCancer.com.
Fantastic.
And yeah, there's a podcast tab, and has all the podcasts on there. I've produced 10 so far, and I'm going to keep going. There's some great. Dr. Bernie Siegel was one of my guests. Dr. Savastio, who was my naturopath, and lots of people. And some are solo, some are interviews. But and I work one-on-one with people who are dealing with or have dealt with cancer. A lot of people let their dreams fall by the wayside because they get cancer, they think they're going to die. So I am a cancer wellness coach, working with people to don't let your dreams die just because you might die someday. No one gets out alive. So
Yep.
I work with some very wonderful people, and I say healing doesn't mean living.
That's right.
Healing means healing.
That's right.
I've had patients and clients I've worked with who passed, and they've said to me, I am so complete and ready to go. And to me, that's worth $1 million gazillion dollars.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we're going to do is I want to break this into another segment because I want to deep dive into a little bit more of your advice and insights for folks who are going through your struggle. Yep. So I think what we're going to do today is thank you for coming on board and starting this conversation, because we're not done. We are not done.
All right.
And I was excited to have you here today because I am always looking for interesting people's stories. Every person walking the planet is a story, and some of those stories are very interesting. Thank you. Again, tell people your websites, if you could, please.
DeniseDeSimone.com and SoMuchMoreThanCancer.com.
Fantastic. Well, until next time, we'll have you right back as soon as we can, Denise.